Hey everybody, welcome back to She's All Business. I'm Sophia, and I can't wait to get into last week's episode with you. Last week's episode is titled Raquelle's All Business, where I had Raquelle Pedraza, who is a fashion designer and VIP tailor, on the show. I really had a great time talking with Raquelle and hearing about her journey in between Mexico and New York and just kind of how she got to where she is today. When she was talking about knowing when to move on, she was referring to knowing when you need to move on from the current job that you're in or current career state that you're in. She first talked about this when she was living in Mexico City, working for a designer for about 2 to 3 years, I believe she said. And she knew that she wanted to come to New York City. Even though she was having a wonderful time at her job in Mexico City, she knew that there was more out there for her and more for her to learn, and she felt that she has grown as much as she could in the job that she was currently in. It's a crazy story of how Raquelle was able to come to New York City to start working. She actually became an intern for Sonia Morgan, who is a Real Housewife of New York. I know, so random. And I couldn't believe that she was saying that to me, like on the couch. I was like, what? Like, that's so random. That has nothing to do with design. But it was kind of her in to working in New York. The story about her meeting Sonia was so crazy. Raquelle was in New York City with her sister, and they were on the streets of Madison Avenue looking at stores, and Sonia stopped her on the street, asked her about her bag or something. They talked for a few minutes, and Sonia ended up giving Raquelle her card. And Raquelle had no idea who this lady was. She just looked really fancy and fashionable. And, she went back to her job in Mexico City after her trip, and about a year after that is when she realized she needed to move on, and I believe she just stumbled upon the card that Sonia gave her the year prior in one of her bags that she hasn't opened since the trip. Long story short, she met Sonia Morgan, crazy. She called her up. Sonia ended up giving her an internship, and then for about 7 years, on and off, Raquelle was working for her. She started off as an intern. She quickly moved to a personal assistant, then became a stylist for Sonia, and during this time, she was on and off working for Sonia and also doing other projects like Vogue Hong Kong and some other accessory design. So after that time frame with Sonia for about that 7 years, Raquelle knew that it was time for her to do something on her own. Raquelle decided that she was going to start her own brand, which is Raquelle Pedraza. This is something that she really harped on. It is knowing when it is your time to move on or do something new. It's great to be loyal to a company, but when you're starting out, you need to try new things, try multiple things, work for different people. You need to learn what you like and what you don't like, and other people will teach you things that you might not get from a different person. If we speak about design, for example, there is a basic skill set that you will need to know in order to succeed within the design world, but it's important to get a bunch of different perspectives. Even though they can all teach you the same skill set and they're all equally talented, they can offer you different things. She knew this early on, and she knew after a certain amount of time when she felt that itch that she has grown to her fullest potential at this job, she was okay with moving on to the next thing or starting something for herself. I think when you get that itch feeling, when you're in a job or an internship that you have been with for so long, it's super, super important to evaluate it and really look at it and think, is it a good time for me to move on to something else? Do I have the means to do that? What have I learned from the job I'm in? And is there anything else that I think can be taught to me in this job? If you feel like you've learned as much as you can and there's nothing more for them to offer, then I think it is a great idea to start applying to new things or start something for your own and learning that you don't need to stay at one place or know the same people in order to succeed. You need to do more things, work for more people, know more people in order to succeed, to get a variety of perspective. So usually on the reflection episodes, after I talk about the thing that the guest was harping on and their experience with it, I usually share my experience with it. However, I don't have a personal experience for this. I haven't had that itch to move on and leave something. I always feel like, at least in the stuff that I've done, that there's more to learn and the people that I'm working for has more to teach me, because the only jobs that I really have had in this industry are internships or like assistant jobs that are like sporadic. There's never been a point for me to be like, I have grown to the fullest potential at this spot or this job. I haven't had that experience yet, and I'm really grateful that I haven't had that experience yet, which means that I know that there's still more for me to learn within what I'm doing. However, I have always had an itch to start something for my own. So the podcast, for example, for many years, I knew that I wanted to do something for my own. It was a magazine at one point, and then it was a podcast, and I was like, what can I do with a podcast? And I knew that it was time for me to start something. I was like, I am almost done college, and I haven't done anything for my own personal brand. I've done stuff to help me in my career. I've done other stuff that I'm passionate about with school, but I haven't done anything for myself that is myself as a brand, and I knew that I wanted that. And I finally decided to jump on it and just start doing something to fulfill that itch that I had. There's been things that I've left or quit or just stopped doing because I just didn't enjoy it and I think there was something better, which isn't what Raquelle was talking about. She was talking about working and doing something that was good and was helping you, but knowing when to leave that. And that's always a challenge, especially if you're really enjoying yourself. So even though it is not the same scenario at all, it is the same idea. Knowing when to start something for yourself goes hand in hand with knowing when to leave something to further your growth. Raquelle also talked about connections. I know I mention it every episode, and I'm going to continue mentioning it every episode because it is so important and every guest always brings it up. I told you the story about Raquelle meeting Sonia, but you can just meet people randomly on the street. Like, Raquelle is a perfect example of that. She literally met Sonia on the street, saved her card, forgot all about it, and a year later, she reached out to Sonia, and Sonia remembered her because of the positive interaction they had, and she ended up working with her on and off for 7 years. And she grew from an intern to then her personal assistant to then her personal stylist. The amount of experience that Raquelle experienced during that time is so much, so crazy. It isn't really what she wanted to do, but she learned so much, which was so beneficial for her. I know I talk about connections all the time, but you know, if you're still a student and you're listening, if your professors or teachers bring in guest speakers to speak to you on an industry that you're interested in, which I would hope so, make sure to get their email at the end because you never know when you're going to need to reach out to somebody and they're a perfect fit. Like even for this podcast, I had a guest speaker in my class like about a month ago, and I reached out to her via email like 2 weeks ago just being like, hey, I met you in this class. I love your story. I think it's so interesting. This is my podcast, and I think you would be a great fit to have on the show. But it was just really great to make that connection with her. And now we're on email correspondence. So even if the podcast situation doesn't work out with her, I still have her email and she has mine, and she's aware of who I am because of me reaching out to her. So you never know in the future past this if that would help me in any way. I like to think of it of having a mental note bank of a list of people that you meet, whether in passing, in class as a guest speaker, or what have you, that you kind of keep in the back of your mind. And I mean this in relation to the people that you have met. Even if you didn't speak with them, like my guest speaker example, even though I didn't really speak to her in that class, I had an interaction with her because my classroom had an interaction with her. So I had an in order to speak with her. So what I'm getting at is when you have that note bank of people and you need to reach out to them for something. So for me, it's my podcast. I want to get more guests on my show. I have this note bank of people that I have kind of met in passing, in class, in something that I'm thinking about, oh, I want to reach out to them in the future. When I reach out to them, usually it's via email or LinkedIn. In the subject of my email, I'll mention how I met them and also what I'm looking to have them do. Especially if they're extremely busy, that'll give you a better chance to hear back from them. And then in the first sentence or two of my email, I will say how I met them, that I was in the class, because even if they don't remember your face or who you were, they remember that experience. And especially if the experience was positive, they shouldn't have a reason to just overlook your email. Even if they're declining what you're asking them or offering them, they will at least have the decency to respond, especially if you explain how you met them, it was a good experience, you put it in the subject of your email. They're not going to ignore it. They will answer you. Even if they decline, they will answer you. And that's what you want. I know you want a yes when you email them for whatever you're asking, but for the future and down the line, you at least just want a response, because you'll never know if you'll need them again in the future, or if they will need you, or they will think of you for something that they're doing. So all of that being said, the two main things to take away from this week and last week's episode with Raquelle is knowing when to move on and to continue your growth elsewhere, even if that's with somebody else or on your own. And also connections. I think you should listen to Raquelle's All Business from last week if you haven't already. All of this will make a lot more sense if you watch that. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. And I will see you guys next week with a new guest episode.